Third chain of islands. Well, our continuous heat is continuing to be around. That's going to be the common theme, it looks like, for a little while. Uh, Water levels are really warm. It's really important for you to be around shale or hard packed sand as much as you possibly can. That's the type of structure that you really want to be around. Our water temperatures are starting out 88, 89 degrees, and they're climbing into the low 91, 92 degrees as you get to noontime hour, maybe 1 o'clock if you're fishing that late in the day. Just with our old high pressure that's in here that's just stabilized our weather patterns, and everything has just gotten extremely hot for the last several days. And that's going to continue, it looks like. That's good news as far as out in the Gulf waters. We don't have anything that's particularly going on out there to be concerned with as of now. So they're good and bad to everything. But the main thing around here right now is you're trying to find that cooler water, the best that you can. Some deeper edges, guts, cuts, that type of thing. That's over that kind of stuff. You get that flow that's coming in. We've had decent water levels, but there's been on the lower side as well. So you've had to contend with that, especially up here in these particular areas. Been spending a lot of time up here on the dugout, third chain, down the runway here on the Cedar Flat side, all the way down towards Cedar Bayou here in Mesquite Bay. So that's been a point of emphasis for us to really work that kind of stuff. And like I say, our bite frame specifically for trout, man, it just continues to hold that pattern by 9:30, 10 o'clock. It's just about done. It's wrapped up. So again, if you're getting on the water early, if you're getting on there by 6 o'clock and you're trying to locate and find your trout, you're probably going to have some pretty decent success. Just kind of depending on where you're going to fish. Of course, your common things are in play. You got to find bait, the right kind of structure over that, and that kind of stuff like that's going on. Your majors and minors being incorporated into that particular time of the day has been critical. It's been very important for us. We've primarily fished over this type of structure, and we're using smaller bait profiles. We're in our transition days. We're heading toward a full moon, and that's just going to add to it, especially if our weather pattern does not change as far as the heat goes. Those fish they're just not going to react to it very well. So you really have to be patient and really have to work your baits and structure, and just kind of, you're going to have to try some different things to get to the desired result that you want. Redfish, once you kind of get into an area where some fish are holding like that redfish wise, they don't worry about it too terribly much. They'll hang out in that shallower water and up on a muddy flat or a hard packed flat. They don't care. They're redfish. But what we've been throwing primarily has been the Little Johns, Little John XLs. Been throwing the down south in the burner shad primarily, and the original size. Nothing very big. We haven't been throwing any 5-inch, 6-inch baits at all. Everything has been in that smaller 4-inch or less size bait. The knock and tail as well. Those size baits have been the best for us. Soft Dine has thrown it a little bit, thrown the Spook Junior as far as the topwater goes, because there's been some opportunities where we've had that shallower water over some potholes and had some moderate success with that. You get I've had a lot of blow-ups on that and a few takes here and there, and then, of course, the Double D has been pretty good for us as well. And the Double D, what's great about it is you can work that, 2.5 to 3 foot of water with that thing. If you really bang that thing down in there low, get on top of that deeper submerged grass, and you can have some pretty good success, late in the morning, mid-morning time frame wise, at 9 to 11 o'clock time frame wise, you can have some good success with that. But again, we've been trying to fish these particular areas, fishing that deeper water later in the morning, early in the morning. We're getting up on the shallow stuff in that thigh deep, knee deep water, and we've had pretty good success with that. We've had super low winds, have not had a whole lot of movement from that standpoint, so we're kind of relying on with our tidal surge as far as it coming and going, incoming, outgoing tides, and just kind of set ourselves up for when that wind is moving a little bit. There's been some really hot days out on the water, and so you really have to contend with that. So it makes it nice to be in a little bit deeper water later in the morning when it really does heat up. Again, the trout, again, over that type of structure, those depths of water, and that's what we've had our success with. And when we start targeting redfish later in the mornings, we've gotten up into the more grassy, flat areas with the potholes, and we've had pretty decent success finding fish here and there. Now, haven't been a lot of them bunched up. Just, ones and twos has been the most part of it. Some of them, under the slot, some in that lower slot. No no big redfish by any means. It's, nothing that's been in the upper slot size wise. Just a lot of 18s to 22s primarily, but they're still fun to catch. Trout wise, we've had pretty decent numbers with that in the baits that we talked about earlier, and a lot of those have been in that 14 to 18 size. So pretty decent success rate and size and amounts. So continue to work that pattern. That's going to be the pattern in play here probably for the next foreseeable future. Over here off Jaybird Point, Jaybird Reef, all the way down on the outside, down into Spalding Reef, the Fingers of Carlos, all this area here. Nice little, you've got the structure you want. You got scattered shell up and down that. You got the reefs that are out there. Of course, you get into the Fingers of Carlos, you got lots of shell around there, and that water's a little bit cooler typically around that kind of stuff. You got a nice hard-packed sand area that you can work in and out of these areas here. So we've just spent some time, again, on these shell bars, these guts primarily, down the shell reef, all those types of areas like that. We've really continued to work all these shell that's out here on these spots. So some of these you're just going to have to get out and work. Again, make sure that you got some bait that's working in the area, and if you've got that, then you're for the first part of it, you're setting yourself up to be somewhat successful. But again, with our heat that's in play, the fish are just not super reactive on a consistent basis. Like I say, you have probably if you're getting on the water by 6 and getting into your area by 6:15-ish, 6:30-ish, depending on how far you got to run to get to wherever you're going to fish over that type of structure, you've probably got a 2.5 hour window to find your fish, to catch your trout before you start to go look for redfish. So that's kind of been the game plan. Really work these reefs, and you'll find out pretty quick if some of these areas are holding fish or not. I mean, if you fish these reefs before and you know what they're doing or how they set up, then you can get yourself spread out over it, especially if you got multiple people, and y'all can go to work and locate fish pretty quickly and get on them and get them and be gone. But that's the main thing that we're looking for, especially out here in this more open water. You get a little bit cooler water, so it lasts a little bit longer as far as what those fish like, as far as what they want to be around. So that's been our game plan. So it's worked for the most part. Some days have been difficult. We've had some tough days on the water. There's no doubt about that. But again, throwing the primarily the smaller size baits, the 4-inch and under, and all the different ones, the mirror lure, little johns. And as far as color goes, there hasn't really been a particular color that's really stood out. It's just been more profile. So that's what we've kind of worked with. So depending on what your water clarity is, because like I say, we haven't had high winds by any means, especially early mornings. It's been very calm, so that water has a tendency to settle, and you have pretty decent water. You got maybe a little off color or maybe a little stain to it, but nothing that's just like dirtied up. So have your color choice when you get the chance to be on the water, where you have those maybe lighter colors or clearer color translucent baits, and then you can kind of filter in a more solid color bait, whatever that may be. But that's been the main things that we have really focused on and really thrown that. Like I say, the Little Johns, XLs, the Double Ds, the Down South Originals and Burner Shad in multiple different flavors, the Knockin' Tails as well, have all produced fish, none more than really any of the others. It's just kind of depending on location, what we want, or what the fish want, what they're trying to look for as far as that profile. But again, like I said just a minute ago, it's more profile than it is color. So that's why a variety of these flavors have worked pretty well, or pretty consistently. We have worked these mouths back down in here. You get into Spalding, you got all those back lake mouths that dump out into that. It's been a ton of bait just stacked up in those guts, especially when that water drops out. So it's almost like a wintertime pattern from a water level standpoint. So we're fishing on the outer edge and fishing those guts to see. And then we found fish laying up in there as well. And some of those have shell that's around them. If you fished it, But it's a little softer bottom in that, so there's just not a tremendous amount of fish that are hanging out. But we found a moderate amount. So anyhow, there's a lot of area that's close by in there, so it gives you an opportunity to cover some water in a short amount of time. But again, make sure that you're factoring in your majors and minors, especially with this amount of heat that we have going on, until we get some type of break from it. Front side of Swan Lake, all this hard-packed sand, grass area that's out here. They got the oyster farm that's right out there in front of it. So we've been working a lot of this area along here. the deeper edge stuff. So this has really kind of come into play for us. So if you fished this area before, you know it's got a deeper drop. You got the nice shallow flat that's here. And again, with our water levels being like they've been, that flat's been, you know, shallower than typically normal that we would have. But it's also allow us to get to the edge and work this deeper drop that's out here just to see if you've got fish that are hanging somewhere off of that deeper water. It's been primarily a later morning tactic that we've kind of gone with. Like I say, we've caught redfish up on the flat and the grass in those areas where it's been allowable for us to be able to fish that. You know, you find your trout out there in front of Swan. You got a few redfish that kind of swim in and swim out of that. You can get on the back side of Swan. You know, this back shoreline's typically good. You got it's not super hard packed in there, but it's, you know, a little squishy, but it's very doable. And that's where we've located redfish that are back in these areas, back in like this, and worked that. Of course, you know, the back side of the little islands there, that's real squishy and some of that. So we've kind of stayed away from that stuff. Maybe worked the middle bit, a little bit in the middle, and then just kind of come back out later in the morning times, and then we've kind of just worked these edge off that deeper water that's out there. So you got a nice little drop. Those fish will tend to get and suspend in that, you know, anywhere from 4 foot to 6 foot of water. That's where, if you don't have the patience to allow your bait to glide down into that water column and that deeper stuff, this is where you probably want to put you on an 1/8 ounce jig head to help get that down in there and work it a little bit easier for you if you're not used to doing that. So it just takes a little patience, a little time, technique, but you got options, something a little different in here. And again, we've continued to work down the shoreline here in the Port Bay area, working around the islands here on this outer edge. And then, of course, we've come over here off of Pete's, you know, the Rattlesnake Points. You've got shell in some of the area that's around that, and you got these deeper edges that's worked off on this side as well. So it's the same scenario, just like on the Swan Lake side, but, you know, you just kind of carry it on and then come back around. And then you got the Redfish Lodge area, that shoreline that works all around there. You got great grass beds, and you got deeper water that's close access to that. So it's just another options for you that are close by, that if you don't have fish holding in a particular area that you're trying to fish, you can get to another fishing area before it gets to that point of where it's just, you know, the trout are really not wanting to cooperate anymore after a certain time frame. Like I say, 9:30, 10 o'clock, it's pretty well, the trout bite is pretty well done. You can still maybe scratch one out here or there if you're looking for redfish. You might find one or two that are kind of laid up in some of those little bit deeper pockets or potholes on some of these areas. So just something else that you have to target. And again, same baits, smaller size in the knock and tail, smaller size in the down south, in the burner shad and that. The Little Johns have been very good for us. XL's been pretty good for us. Those size baits have been primarily what the trout have been looking for, and then we're catching the reds off those as well. So when we have caught them, so it's been a nice little transition from the trout bite into the redfish bite. And of course, if you just really want to target redfish, then you're pretty open for the majority of the day as long as you want to be out there. Like I say, our water temps are starting out in the mornings in like 88, 89 degrees, depending on some of the estuaries, and that's just really warm, man. Super warm water. And then, of course, it's getting up, and we've had these clear days, not a lot of cloud cover here in the last few days, and then, you know, that water temp creeps up into the low 90s. I think I've seen one earlier this week that was, you know, 93s, was around 1 o'clock in the afternoon. So yeah, that's super warm stuff, and not very much activity going on during that time frame either. So you're really having to work if you're going to fish past noon. So if you really can focus and get to your fish and give yourself that first 6 hours of the day, and that's going to be your time frame to find and catch fish, then that's really what you need to focus on. If you can find a major or minor that's going to help you in that time frame, use it to your advantage. You know, make sure that you got those color profiles ready to go. Like I say, color hasn't been a super big factor. It's been more the profile size. Again, we're in the transition days, headed toward a full moon. Make sure that you put that into play for you as far as your tactics go for your fishing day. And just be really patient with these fish, because you know it's going to be super warm for them.